So, hello viewers. Today we'll be covering memory and thinking. So, let's start with memory. What did you eat in dinner yesterday? What is the name of your best friend? Do you know how to drive a car or cycle? How did you feel when you got the highest marks in your high school? The mental process you use to answer all of these questions is known as memory. Now, when I asked you these questions, you must have thought about it for a moment and then you answered it. Then, when you were thinking, that moment in when you were thinking, and the process that you were using during that time, that is known as memory. All those functions, all those machineries that you were making use of while thinking that answer, these are all involved in memory. It refers to the ability. Now, this is its definition. If you wish, you can write it down. No, I'll tell you separate definition of memory. Let's just read it first. It refers to the ability of retaining information and reproducing it over a period of time when required to perform a cognitive task. So, first, if you wish, you can write down the definition of memory here from here. The ability of retaining information and reproducing it over a period of time when required to perform a cognitive task. This is the definition of memory. Now, before moving ahead, first you should understand what cognitive is and what retain is. It says the ability of retaining information. Retain means to keep or continue having something. It means it's not like you have it for some time and then you left it, you forgot about it, it went off. So you need to keep on having it, like you bought a pen and then you have that pen for some time, right? But if you just asked for a pen from the shopkeeper, took a look at it and then decided not to buy it, then you left it, so you didn't retain the pen, right? You just took a look at it and then you left it. But if you had that pen when you were back home, or if you had that pen for some period of time after, even after you left the shop, so it can be said that you retained the pen for some time. So similarly, in case of information, in case of memory, if you had some information in your brain and then you after a few seconds you forgot it, so it's not part, it's a part of your memory but you didn't actually retain it. Or no, let's say that you heard something but you couldn't make sense of it, it didn't get into your head, you don't know what it was about, and you immediately forgot about it, so you didn't retain it, right? And that can only happen with a person who doesn't have any memory, but this happens with no one. Why? Because everyone has a memory. Everyone has it. It can be poor memory, it can be sharp memory, strong memory, but everyone has memory. So if you told something to someone, he would definitely remember it at least for 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and that retaining is part of memory. So retain means to keep or continue to have something, and cognitive means involving conscious intellectual ability, means making use of your brain and then taking conscious decisions. So the ability of retaining information, so the ability of keeping information and then reproducing it and then bringing it again over a period of time. It means not like once or twice, it means over a period of time. Over a period of time you can, even if someone asked you about it a minute later, you will be able to recall it. 10 minutes later you will still be able to recall it, and you can reproduce it again and again and again. It's not like you could only produce it one time. So like it's like a kind of one time memory. Okay, let's say I told you 2 into 5 is equal to 10. So if you have memorized it, then whenever I ask you, you will be able to say 2 into 5 is equal to 10, 2 into 5 is equal to 10. But if you didn't memorize it, say let's say there is some kind of phenomena that you can only tell it once. So I asked you 2 into 5 is what? So you told me 10. Then I asked you again, what is 2 into 5? Then you don't know what is 2 into 5. Even though you have completely memorized it, you have been hearing about it, you've known about it for years and years, but there's some kind of strange phenomenon that you could only tell about it once in your lifetime. You would only remember whatever you learned, you would only remember it once, and after speaking it or after reproducing it once, you will forget it. So that will not be memory, but that does not happen. If it is in your memory, then you can reproduce it as many number of times as I ask. Let's say someone has short term memory, okay, so he can only remember about what happened about 1 minute ago. But if in that 1 minute I asked him even 100 times what happened, what has happened right now, what has happened a few seconds ago, he will be able to tell it again and again and again, right? It's not like he told it once and then he forgot because I was only supposed to tell it once. He can tell it as many number of times as required. So reproducing it over a period of time, it means over a period of time he can say it again and again and again when required to perform a cognitive task, whenever he is required to perform a conscious intellectual ability. So, to understand it more thoroughly, let us take a better example. Suppose you are writing a table. Okay, so in writing a table of two, you need, or you are teaching some students. So for that you need to use your cognitive abilities. You need to use your intellectual ability very consciously in teaching them. But if you forgot, if you don't even remember yourself what you read, then how will you teach them, right? If you're not able to reproduce that information which you are going to teach to them, if you are not able to reproduce it to your own mind, while performing this cognitive ability, then how are you going to teach them? Then cognitive ability, it means everything that we do, almost everything that we do, is done through cognitive abilities, right? So if you're sitting, then you know why you're sitting. You might be feeling tired, or you felt like sitting, that's why you're sitting. So you're taking this decision consciously. If I had my way, then I would say that all these decisions are taken unconsciously or subconsciously. But since this is not a philosophy class but psychology, so we'll go with psychological terms. Anyways, so according to psychology, most of the decisions that you take are taken consciously. You decided to sit, that was a conscious cognitive decision. You decided to stand, you decided to go and prepare food, you decided to eat food, you decide to go for a walk. All of these are cognitive conscious decisions. All of these are conscious decisions which you have taken through your intellect, which have been taken for some kind of reason, right? And if you are able to use and reuse whatever you have learned or whatever you have memorized again and again during this span of time while you are performing these activities, then it means that you have a memory. Get it? If you still don't get it, let's just take this example. See, this is a chair. Damn, my drawings. So this is a chair, and some guy here decides to sit on this chair. Okay, and he knows that this chair is very hot, or this chair has some kind of sharp needles on it. Let's say some sharp needles on it. Okay, the guy knows about this, and then he comes to the chair, but decides not to sit on it. Why? Because he knows that there are needles on it. The cognitive decision was, the cognitive activity was, the cognitive task was to sit on the chair. But then memory told him, he reproduced this memory. Maybe he heard it from someone, or maybe let's say these needles are kind of invisible, or they are covered with something. So the guy maybe heard from someone that there are needles on the chair. And when the guy reached the chair, he suddenly remembered that someone told me that there are needles on the chair, so he can't sit. So the cognitive task was of sitting on the chair. Why did he want to sit? Because he was feeling very tired. Okay. But memory told him that sitting on the chair is harmful. And how was memory able to tell him? Because that piece of information that he had remembered, that he had learned, he was able to reproduce it over this period of time, over the period of time from when he met the person to the time when he's about to get on the chair. During this span of time, he was able to reproduce that information, and that is how memory served him. Now, no need to go into so much details, it's not so complex. It refers, we've done it. It has been conceptualized as a process comprised of 3 stages. What is conceptualization? Conceptualization is the act or process of forming a general notion or idea. So memory has been formed into a kind of idea. So the idea of memory, or the concept of memory, you can say the concept of memory has been divided into 3 stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. All information received by our senses go through these stages. Encoding. It is the process of converting sensory information into a form that can be produced further by the memory system. What is sensory information? Sensory information is absolutely every information that we receive. And how is every information part of sensory information? Because sensory information, in short, let me tell you what is sensory information. So what is actually sensory information? Sensory information is any sort or any kind, my handwriting, any sort of information received through the senses. And now try to think of something. Try to think of any information that you did not receive from your senses. See, let's say there's a hot pen here, right? Let's say here this is a very hot pen, and then I decided to touch it, then my finger would suddenly feel very sharp and burning pain, and I would retract my fingers. So now what information did I receive? What information did my brain suddenly receive? That the pen is hot. And how did I receive the information? Through my skin. And skin is what? Skin is a sense organ, right? Skin is one of your five senses. Let's say that there is some area, you are going on a road, and there is some dead animal alongside the road, but you don't know about it, it's invisible, there are some trees or bushes hiding it. But when you are walking through this road, you smell a very bad foul smell, and then you decide to change your path and take some other road maybe. So now this information that this path is very foul, it has a very foul smell, or there is some kind of animal dead beside the road. How do you know this information? Did someone come and tell you that there is a dead animal beside? No, this information was known through your sense, your nose, right? Now let's talk about some more general examples. Someone came to you and told you what are the questions that are going to come in the exam. Now, how did you receive this information? Through your ears. And what is ear? Ears is also a sense organ. Let's say that you saw someone beating someone up, okay, or you saw a crime scene, and then you reported the crime scene. Then how did you get the information about the crime scene? Did someone come and gave you a video recording, or did someone come and tell you that there's a crime being happening and stuff? No, you received this information through your eyes, right? And eyes is what? It's a sense organ. Even if you are watching a movie, even if you are watching a like this kind of educational video, you are continuously receiving that information through your sense, your eyes, your ears. These are the senses that are giving you information. So every kind of information that we receive throughout our lifetime is provided to us only through our sense organs. There are some kind of metaphysical information which we will not be discussing in this video, that is not provided by the sense organs. But most of the information any average human gathers in his lifetime is provided through the sense organs. So here it is saying that the process of converting sensory information, so the information that we receive from senses. Now we touched a pen and it was very hot. Okay, so we only feel that the pen is very hot and painful. Now this information needs to be changed. Now what the hand felt? The hand felt a very high temperature. It doesn't know what pain is. It doesn't know it's dangerous. It doesn't know anything. It only knows that the pen was very high temperature, very, very hot, right? Now we need to change this information into kind of language, into kind of information that we can understand, we can make sense of. So now that can be processed further by the memory systems. So the process of converting this sensory information into form that can be processed further by the memory systems. This is called encoding. This is encoding. Okay. Now encoding in computer means a different thing, but here encoding is different. It is a process of converting sensory information, that is information received through the senses, into a form that can be processed further by the memory systems, that can be again further processed by some memory systems. Okay, so storage. In this second stage, received information by memory systems are stored so that it can be used at a later time. Now the memory has received information that this pen was hot, and what has it done? It has stored this information for future use. This is storage. Third is retrieval. It refers to locating and bringing the stored materials to one's awareness when required to complete a task. Now the next time you see a burning hot pen and you suddenly touch it, then what's the use of your previous experience? What's the use of that information that had been stored? The third task, retrieval, is also equally important. Now you need to retrieve that information, bring it to your awareness, so you know that touching this pen is harmful actually. This is very similar to how computer works. Suppose you are executing a program. Okay, let's say that you are executing a program. Now what is a program? A program is a set of instructions. A program is nothing but a set of instructions that is telling the computer what to execute, what to do. So we have created a memory. That program is a memory. When we run the program, we feed the memory to the computer, and the computer knows exactly what to perform, right? That's a kind of stored memory. What do they say you do with pen drives? You store memory into it. You store, that's a storage device. So you store information into it. So memory can be said like a kind of USB flash drives can be called as a kind of memory. So you put something into it, you put information into it, it stores the information, and then when it is required, you plug it into a PC and retrieve the information. So USB is similar to memory in our brain. Let's say that our brain is a vast thing, and then in our brain there's a kind of little chamber. In this chamber information goes, and then information is stored, and when some information is required, that information is retrieved, brought to the brain processes it and then takes action accordingly. So memories can be called as can be seen as a kind of chamber where information is stored. Models of memory now. Several models were stated to explain the process of memory. Some of the models can be explained as follows. The traditional model of memory. Atkinson and Shiffrin proposed a model for memory known as staged model of memory or modal model. This model is greatly influenced by the working of computer. If you have ever used computers, you must be aware of the two types of memory used by it. So this is similar to the example that I was going to give, but of course I didn't. So what happens in a computer when you are executing a program, some other, now we're not talking about how a program itself is a piece of memory. We're talking about when you're executing that piece of memory, some further information is required, and then computer stores that little bit of information into its RAM, where that information is required temporarily, as while the program is being executed or while the program is being run, the information is only required for that amount of time. But then there is some kind of information that is stored permanently into your computer, like your files, your videos, your photos, your softwares. All this kind of information is stored permanently into the ROM, read-only memory. So here it is: RAM, random access memory, and ROM, read-only memory, or memory available in computer in the form of hard drive. Hard drive, that's a kind of external memory actually. So forget hard drive. We're talking about hard drive here. RAM is the memory that you use while performing a task at hand. Whereas ROM is that part of memory where you can save all types of files, as it has a vast storage capability. So what it says is that our brain works similar. When we need some kind of temporary information, our brain stores it and processes it and gives it back to us when that information is required, when that particular program or when that particular action is being taken. But there is some kind of information that is stored permanently into brain. It retains its place whether we need the information or we do not need it. If you need it after a year, you will still be able to recall it. So this is the model. Atkinson and Shiffrin equated working of human memory to the working of computers. They proposed that similar to computers, we also possess different forms of memory systems described as below. So what they were saying is that we have three kinds of memory systems. Information is given or is stored in these three kinds of memory systems: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. The capacity of sensory memory is very small, so very little information is stored in the sensory memory. Duration is less than 1 second. Short-term memory capacity is very small. Duration is less than 30 seconds, and long-term memory capacity is unlimited. Duration is up to one lifetime, means up to a complete lifetime. Let's say how they explain these then. Sensory information. In this representation of sensory information is stored from a very brief period of time, which means that whatever information we sense by focusing, it remains in the sensory information for a span of about a second. Now this is a little bit complex to explain, but I'll try. So let's say that here it's my room. Here it is my room. So there are a lot of things in my room. Now see, check out all these things. So noticed all these things, right? Now, can you recall how many things there were, or what exactly are these things? Can you recall it? You probably won't be able to recall every single thing that came into your view, right? You won't be able to recall all those things, but you still saw all those things. If you saw all those things, that means that they definitely got into your memory. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to make sense of it. You wouldn't be able to think about it, because to think about something, we need to put information in. Or let's say that you saw all those things and you read the name of all those things, and you told me particularly this is this thing, this is this thing, this is this thing, while looking at them. And then after a minute, after let's forget after a minute, after 10, there were several things, about 50 things you can say, and you name all of the 50 things while looking at each thing at one time. And then after 10 seconds I ask you, now can you recall all those things without looking at that room or without looking at these things? So you won't be able to recall them. Why? Because that information was stored only for a brief period of a second, of about a second, into your brain. That information was not stored in your short term memory or your long term memory either. It was stored in your sensory memory. So as long as you were required to, think about that thing, so you say, nah, right, this is similar to random access memory. Then while you were executing a program, let's say while you were telling me about this particular thing, that memory is stored into your brain and you are able to process it, and then you suddenly realize, yeah, I've seen this thing before, and this is this, and then you told me the name of this thing, this is the thing. Then again it happened with 50 similar things, it happened similarly with 50 things. But after the 50 things are done, even though you've just told me that these are the things, this is their purpose, this is what they use for, even though you've just told me, you won't be able to recall all of them now after I ask you, after this explanation, you won't be able to recall all of those things. Why? Because they were stored in your sensory memory. The information was stored only as long as you were required to work upon it. Now let's move on to short term memory. Short term memory can store information about for 30 seconds. Suppose that a friend gave you his number and you need to write down that number, so you will be able to recall that, you will be able to retain the information about that number for approximately 30 seconds. And because you really wanted to concentrate it on, because you wanted to remember it at least for the time being while you enter it into your phone. Or let's say that, let's take the previous example that I asked you to explain all these things and what they mean. So some of those, you will still be able to recall some of those things. Why? Because some of these things were actually related to you. You might have seen them somewhere else, you might relate to them, or they just got stuck into your short term memory because of some particular thing. And even after a duration of 30 seconds, you were able to recall some of the things. Yeah, that I saw this thing in the room. But let's say that you were put into a room where all the things you've never come into contact with, you've never seen them in your lifetime. Will you be able to recall as many things as you did when you saw things that were known to you? No, right? If you were put in a room where all the things are alien to you, you won't be able to recall many of the things that you saw there. The ratio between both of them would be very small. Let's do this through an example again. See, there are two rooms. One room here has things that you have seen previously or you've come in contact with as you grew up. One thing has completely alien things, you've never seen them, don't even know what their uses or what they are. So you are put into this room. When you come back, let's say there were 10 things and there were 10 things more. So it's most probable that in this case you will be able to recall 7 or say 8 out of these 10 things, right? But in this case you will be able to recall 1 or 2 things out of the 10 things. And I'm telling you this from experience. I've experienced this firsthand while I was in my school years. Now the third thing is about long-term memory. When you first let's read the short-term memory. After a span of a second, it gets transferred to STM. This system also holds information for short duration of time. Studies have suggested that it can hold information up to maximum. That's a maximum of 30 seconds. Tasks such as dialing a phone number manually or writing in a dictation are examples of information remaining in STM. So it means that the thing on which you focus for more than 1 second retains itself into your short-term memory, and the things and after the short-term memory is long-term memory. After an elaborative, what does elaborative means? Made or done with great care or with much detail. So after a very detailed and careful rehearsal means repeating it again and again and again, information moves to LTM, that is long term memory, which has been considered as a storehouse of all kinds of memories. You can remember things from last evening to since your childhood due to the system of memory. So let's say that you are driving a car, right? You are learning to drive a car. So sensory memory, there's no use for sensory memory, I believe, in here. But let's say that someone told you that this is how you change the gears, and this is how you start the car, this is how you drive it, this is where the gas pedal is, acceleration, stuff. Okay. And then it retains into your short-term memory. Okay, this is how we change the gear. This is how to turn on to start the car, to turn on the car, and to move it ahead. Then after some time you forgot it. You suddenly ask the teacher, how do we change it the gear to fourth? How do we change the gear to fifth? I forgot. So it was stored in your short-term memory. But if you keep on doing an elaborative, a very detailed, or with great care, a very careful rehearsal of driving a car again and again and again over a long period of time, then it would get stored into your long-term memory. Then you would know how to change the gear, how to drive the car, how to do this, how to do that. You won't fuss about it that I don't remember it. You might not become a very expert at driving, but you would still remember it, how these things are done. At least they would be stored in your memory how these things are done. And even if someone asks you after a year, if you have not been driving a car and someone asks you after a year, how do we change the gear, you would still be able to recall it. And this is how you change the gear. How information move from one memory system to another. According to Atkinson and Shiffrin, only that information which can grab our attention will move from sensory memory to STM. Whereas information from STM can only be moved to LTM through elaborative rehearsal. Elaborative rehearsal, this is important, which refers to thinking in terms of the meaning of the information and relating it to already existing information in LTM. So in LTM, the information in LTM, how does it get stored? It's stored through elaborative rehearsal, and we link that information. We understand the meaning of that information and we link it, we relate it to some of the information that was already present in our LTM. Right? So let's say that someone told you that you should drive very carefully on the road, otherwise accident might happen. So how does this get into your LTM? You understand it very carefully. The person explains to you the significance of this, that how an accident can happen. You need to be very careful, and then you remember from your past experiences that you saw a few accidents happen and how brutal they were, and it gets stored into your LTM that I need to be careful while driving on the road, otherwise such things can happen with me. So you keep on repeating into your brain. Whenever you start driving car, you keep on repeating that I have to be careful, I need to be careful, I need to drive with caution, otherwise such things can happen. And then it gets stored into LTM. You would subconsciously remember that I need to be careful. Even if you're not repeating it now, you know it inside yourself that you need to be careful. Your body will act more carefully now, with more cautiousness. So, and how can it move from STM to LTM? Whatever grabs your attention moves from STM to LTM, because STM memory is very short. So whatever grabbed your attention, let's say when I was showing you my room like this, see, when I was showing you my room, you saw a lot of things, but then the jacket, because it was yellow, it suddenly grabbed your attention. So now what did you retain in your brain? You retained the jacket. You forgot about all those things, what other things, the medicines or all those other utensils, accessories were there. You forgot about them for a brief moment, and only jacket stuck into your mind. Now after some time, after 15-20 seconds, after 1 second, let's say, most likely it is that you will remember jacket. Why? Because it grabbed your attention. Now, the levels of processing model. This is another model of memory. This model refutes the claim of Atkinson and Shiffrin model. So this model denies the model of Atkinson and Shiffrin. Memory consists of different subsystems. It says that memory consists of subsystems, but different subsystems, not the ones that Atkinson and Shiffrin said, like sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. So according to the model of level of processing, whether information will be retrieved successfully or not, on it depends on its level of processing. So it depends whether you can retain the memory, you keep that memory in your brain or not. It depends not on the kind of subsystem you have, or not in the not on the number of times you have rehearsed it or you have reread it. It depends on what level it has been processed to. LOP refers to the level at which information has been encoded. So it means at which level have you processed this information. Craig and Tulving have proposed 3 levels of processing information: physical and structural processing, encoding on information based on its physical attributes; phonological processing, encoding based on how it sounds, such as hat rhymes with cat; semantic processing, encoding done based on its meaning and or concept. Studies on this model have suggested that deeper the level of processing, the higher will be its probability to be retrieved successfully. Physical, phonological, semantic. So what it's saying is, if you if you link something to its physical or structure, then you will retain the information about it. It will be kept in your memory for a very short term of time compared to phonological and semantic processing. If you link it with the phonology means sound. It refers to sound. So if you link it with some kind of particular sound, then it will retain into your brain for a longer period of time. And if you link it, if you understand its meaning, if you understand its concept completely, and you link it with the meaning, the concept of it, then it will stay in your brain, stay in your memory for the most amount of time. Let's say Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I'm sure you all know The Rock. So you've seen Rock for the first time, let's say, and then you suddenly saw, wow, what a great body he has, those muscles, those pecs. So you will be able to remember him for some period of time. Yeah, I saw a bodybuilder yesterday. So next day you might remember it that I saw a bodybuilder yesterday. He had such a great physique and stuff and stuff. Okay. Maybe you will remember it for a week, maybe a month. That's it. If you haven't seen him ever before, it's your first time meeting him, then maybe the memory will stay for a month or 2 months in your brain. But if you link him with some kind of phonology, so let's say if you link him with some kind of phonology, like you linked his name with Rock Shock, so you got shocked looking at him. You got shocked suddenly. What a great physique he has, and you linked it with Rock Shock. Oh, I saw Rock and I got shocked. So this is a phonology. You have linked it with a sound. I saw Rock and I got shocked. So this will this will stay in your memory for a longer period of time. Whenever you will read, whenever you will say Rock, suddenly shock will come into your brain by itself, and then it will link how shock was linked with Rock. Then you would suddenly remember, oh, I saw a person named Rock at that time, and then from that time I thought that, wow, what a great, and I got shocked while looking at that Rock. So this is how shock is connected to Rock. This is how shock is connected to Rock. Now, semantic processing means you understood its meaning and you understood the concept. Understanding the meaning and concept, like, let's say, it's actually very hard to explain why semantic processing retains your memory for the most period of time, because in this in this situation, these times, we have a lot of burden of studies. We have to study 10, 12, 15 books at a time for 1 year, so you basically forget most of the information that you studied. That's why you won't be able to link yourself with this. You won't be able to see that, oh, what he's saying, it's bullshit. It doesn't happen. If this was so, then I would remember everything I studied because I understood its meaning, I understood the concept. But let's say that you only had one topic to remember a month. Let's say you were in school and you only had to remember one topic. Each month only one topic was taught to you, and let's say that this one topic is taught to you in very great detail. You are told the meaning of what this topic is. Let's say that you are told that this piece of bar, it is a soap. Let's say you are given a soap and you are taught that how soaps work, how soaps actually work, and soap gets dissolved in water, soap kills the germs and stuff. So you understood the meaning of soap, what soap actually is, what the concept behind soap is, how soap is made. You understood it perfectly. So this information will stay in your memory for the longest period of time. Now, if you weren't burdened and you completely understood the meaning, the concept of soap, then even if someone asked you after 2 years, what is soap used for, you would be immediately able to tell. Even if you won't be able to tell some of the rest of the information, you would still be able to answer some of the major information. That what does soap do? Soap is used to kill germs. Soap is used to wash our hands. You will be able to tell this information, right? What I think is memory is somewhere between the this, what was the model's name, the model memory or the stage model of memory, and the level of processing model of memory. Memory is somewhere in between them. This is my personal opinion, to be honest. I think memory works on both of these systems. Okay, it's not like one system is completely wrong, one system is completely right. It's somewhere in between. Both these systems are actually effective when it comes to memory. But like I said, I was only going to explain this. So semantic process is based on its meaning. If you understood the meaning, the concept behind this thing, then you will remember it for the most period of time. You will be able to remember it for as long as you want to, maybe for one lifetime. And that is exactly how we take intellectual, conscious, cognitive decisions, because we have understood the concept behind many of the things, and they retain our memory for the longest period of time. So even when you become an old or an adult, you don't forget what you learned during your childhood. You don't forget what you learned as a small child and then start doing ridiculous things. So let's say during your childhood that you learned that running on the road is a dangerous thing while there are vehicles moving on, right? So you understood the concept, you understood the complete meaning behind this, why that person is saying that running on the road while there are vehicles is dangerous. So it's not like you forgot it after a year or after 2 years, and then when you grew up to become an adult, suddenly you start running on the road. Why? Because you forgot that running on the road was dangerous. You understood the concept behind it, and that's why you remember it. Even after becoming an adult, you remember that why running on the road is dangerous and why I should not do it. So this is what semantic processing about. Now, because this video has become very long, we will learn thinking. We will understand this thinking in the next video.